Welcome to Ascending the Tower of Eternal Love, a journey with Mary Magdalene. This is my third video as part of this series. This is going to really target the realm of darkness in a way that we get to experience the transformation from the darkness to the light, the alchemy, the transmutation. This is what ancient alchemists have been searching for. Okay. The lead to gold transmutation. We will see it as the materialized journey from turning lead into gold, the very physical experience of changing one thing into another. But we have our own alchemy from within. And that is what ancient alchemists have truly been trying to figure it out because they could work the elements. They could work with the mineral kingdom and all of these different things, right, that are available that they were able to look at in a lot of different unique ways to see how something is malleable, to see how something withstands heat and cold and different conditions. How does this particular thing change when you change the environment? And then what happens when you are able to change and shift things from within? And I find that this is the journey that we are on. Like, how many times have you thought to yourself, I'm going to get another job because you had just felt so unfulfilled, in your work? You felt unfulfilled maybe in other areas of your life. And you probably had a thought and a feeling that it's the job that's the problem because that's where you feel like you're miserable and it's kind of emanating out into other areas of your life. Is it really the job or is it you and who you are in your life? It's very easy for us to feel the discomfort in our body and to project it out onto something else as this is the reason why I'm not happy. This is the reason why things aren't working. And this is the journey of getting back into our bodies. Mary Magdalene has really taught me in a very profound way. And I had to actually read and reread and listen to and re listen to multiple times a lot of the materials that I have acquired in this pilgrimage, in this journey. It was not for me to just simply pick up an article, a book, an essay, a blog, or whatever, a video, a training, and just go through it once and be done with it. What I have actually been doing with this journey of Mary Magdalene is a lot of times I'm very much like, okay, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And I can reflect on the experience, but I don't usually look back and revisit things because I'm on to the next thing. This has not been my experience with this journey. There are many things that it's like I'm on to the next, but I'm also going back and forth and back and forth. And I am really going back to re-listen to, reread, redo so much of the work that I started in 2022 because it actually took that for it to land in my body. And that is the point. I've had some really interesting realizations that have surprised me. And it prompted a lot of really just like some very intense, long journal entries and meditations and prayer and contemplation within myself because, man, we've got a lot of really great ideas. At 15 years old, when I broke away from what just didn't align with me anymore because I felt like it's always been part of my soul in this life to explore things that a lot of people would possibly be afraid to explore. Like, I disappointed my family. You know, I they were very frustrated with me. They were angry at me. had a lot of opinions, and there was a lot of judgment because I decided that I really just didn't feel like that was the path that I was meant to follow. And what's interesting about that is, you know what I mean? I've come back full circle, to be completely honest. But what I'm really trying to convey here is that when I decided to go on this journey, at 15 years old of exploration and research and investigation to learn and understand and practice and embody these different practices throughout different cultures and spiritual paths, I had not realized how out of my body I was. And that I have actually lived most of my life outside of my body. I really believe through hypnosis and meditation and some very powerful inner conversations and channelings that I started leaving my body as a result of trauma starting at the age of 3 years old. And then there were a lot of other traumas that compounded those like very original traumas. And so it kind of has like this snowball effect. And our psyche is very, very, very smart. I took myself out of my body from a very young age. Our psyche knows how to do that to protect us. If you have encountered something that was very shocking, something traumatic, something that had a negative impact that really surprised you, there is a good chance that part of your consciousness left. And that was to protect you, to keep you safe, because psychologically you didn't have the framework or the cognition to support, right? When I haven't really talked about the abuse that I had experienced between 13 and 15 years old. That is not something I've really gone into publicly. This is something that I have maybe shared little tiny glimpses of in, my more wide range content. But if you are in like a personal private container with me and you've worked with me for a while, and depending on different things that you've gone through, there's a very good chance that I did share, that story. But on a public forum like this, I have not. So I will say though that the abuse lasted for about 2 years. And it started when I was 13 and it ended when I was 15. And so let's just say that I had experience with my consciousness separating from my body because when this would happen to me, I was in my bed asleep. And so it was very surprising, shocking, and traumatizing. And because it felt like I was so cornered in this experience, meaning I did not know how to exercise my voice. I did not know how to stand up for myself. I did not know what was okay for me to do or say in those moments because I was so caught off guard by this experience. And I froze. You know what I mean? It's almost like a possum that looks like it's dead, right? Like a predator is coming and the possum is like, it just kind of rolls over onto its back and it plays dead. And it is absolutely a part of our trauma response in our body and our mind of how we cope with very traumatic situations. And it's also, I think, a lot of reasons why and this is not something I suffer with, but I do know quite a few people, women, who have expressed that there are years of their childhood that they just do not remember. They don't remember their holidays, they don't remember their summer, they don't remember, like, they just don't remember, and it is because there is some protective mechanism within our consciousness that does want to keep us safe, but through that experience, we do become disembodied, we do fracture ourselves off and away, and so I did not know any of this. Had 3 years old, 8 years old, 12 years old, 15 years old, 18 this is actually something that has just really become very much in my awareness over the past probably like 5 or so years. And Because what I realized was that when I really started in this spiritual journey at 15 years old, when I really look back on it, I was looking to get out of my body. I had experienced a lot of migraines. I had been abused. I had a lot of just inner nervous system dysregulation, emotional dysregulation, panic attacks, severe anxiety. And at that time, we didn't have like the internet, home computer, there was no Google, there was no finding the answers like you can today, but we're like, "Oh, why is my eye twitching?" And but you're like, "Google it." And then you get, like, these answers, and you're like, "Oh, okay, okay." And it's so I don't really want anybody to be diagnosing themselves, but it's always nice to be able to find an answer, right? Something to hold on to, something to be like, "Oh, okay, and then now I can either, get in touch with my doctor or I can just use a very gentle soap on my eye or whatever, or I just need a vitamin or a nutrient or something like that to, take away that little twitch." I did not have a clue what was wrong with me. And that also compounded the situation because it was clear in my mind that there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. And then that just became the internal mantra. There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. And so I realized that I really wanted to get out of my body. And so I did a lot of transcendental meditation. I had a lot of experiences anyway that was already taking me out of my body because it was very easy for me to astral project. It was very easy for me to remote view. Eventually, I took some classes on this to help me fine tune my skills to understand all of the parameters of it. But from a very young age, I was able to accomplish things that higher accomplished psychics were training other people to do, and I did not know how or why this was happening for me, but it was also scary. I tried to redirect that energy into spirituality, learning about chakras. I journeyed through Buddhism, Hinduism, prayer, meditation, yoga. I started yoga probably around like 15, 16 years old, and that was a very big game changer for me as well. Yoga was probably the only practice at that time that was helping me get back in my body. And then without realizing it, I would allow myself to kind of like disconnect again, especially if there was a stressful circumstance. So the point of all of this and why I'm sharing all of this is because it wasn't until literally like a few years ago that I realized how not embodied I was in myself. It took me a very long time because you don't know what you don't know, right? I started to kind of put things together because I started to notice things that I had not previously noticed in terms of there is a separation between what my mind is directing me to versus what my body is saying. Okay. So, for instance, this is something that has come up in a lot of calls with clients and different trainings that I've offered over the years. It's quite easy for us to say, I'm going to do this, or I am this, and I'm worthy of this, and I want this, and I'm ready to receive this. It's another thing to actualize that experience in the nervous system of your body, which is your like the unconscious nervous system lives in the vessel. And so I started noticing that, like, why am I can say this thing, I can have this idea, I can have a feeling that goes along with the idea. Let's say it's a something that I really want, right? And I'm questioning if it's possible for me to manifest it. And then there's a part of my mind that's like, yes, of course. Of course you can manifest this. And of course you will have it. And of course you will magnetize it. And of course you will be everything that you need to be to receive it because you are ready for this. And I'm like, something's not right here. Why is it that I'm saying all of these things? I'm declaring these things to the universe, right? Like I'm setting my intentions, I'm putting the energy out there. But what's being reflected back in my reality is very different than the ideas that I am putting out into the universe. And I had to sit with that. I had to really reflect and contemplate. And that was when I had this moment of clarity. And the moment of clarity really said, because It's a really great idea. And there is a part of you that believes this, but the part of you that really needs to back it with the energy, like the true frequency of the yes, the of course, the, law of assumption, like, of course, this is going to happen for me. Of course, this is coming in my world. Of course, I'm magnetizing it into my reality. There was a massive, like, constriction. That's kind of like the only way I can really describe it because that's how it feels. Is like there's this tightness or this, and I'm a sacral authority in human design, so I'm a manifesting generator. So for those individuals who do not have a defined sacral, they might not feel it the same way. They might feel it as just like an intuitive no. It might just feel like a no. It shows up in our body in different ways. But for me, I can tell you right now, it shows up as like this constriction and a shrinking energy that pulls everything in to this tightness. And that is the opposite of expansiveness and, limitlessness and potential and, magnetism, really drawing things in. Something in my body was saying, no, no, you're not. No, you're not ready for this. No, you can't hold this. No, this isn't going to work. So that's what really propelled me on the journey of nervous system regulation, emotional regulation, breath work, somatic exercises, and also exploring more. Because I started this many years ago when I was journeying through like Buddhism and Hinduism was Tantra, however you want to say it. But and Tantra is not about, it's not like the premise of sex and intercourse. It is about the rising energy in the body. It is about the source of your energy at the base of who you are and allowing that energy to rise up through your chakras, through your spinal column, cerebral spinal fluid. Like there's also some very, very strong biological factors that are incorporated in this. This is not woo woo. Okay. Don't like that term either. Metaphysics is not woo-woo. Metaphysics is exactly what Jesus was teaching. Metaphysics is exactly what Mary embodied. Metaphysics is the key and the gateway to ascension consciousness, to Christ-like consciousness, and to true embodiment of your truth. Okay? So the authentic self and everything that that self is capable of, which is pure potentiality. Like there is no limitation to who you are and what's possible for you unless you are blocking that in your body, blocking that in your unconscious nervous system, blocking that because there is truly in the network of all of this circuitry that says it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. I can't hold this. It's not safe for me. And so this isn't what put me on the journey with Mary Magdalene. This is what she taught me while I was on my journey. It became like more and more and more and more and more and more clear that I did not realize just how out of my body I was living my life. And I could tell that because of the people pleasing, because of the detachment and dissociation of my body during very stressful experiences, panic attacks, anxiety, just dissociating from my physical body because my physical body didn't even feel safe to be in, that felt like there were threats to my physical safety and to my physical stability and my physical security. And so my psyche, reflecting back on many, many years ago when it already started this practice and process for me, would just be like, oh, that thing, my mind, my like completely detached. And what it feels like is if you don't know what this feels like, if you are unsure if this has happened for you, it kind of feels like you're floating, like your head is obviously still attached to your body, but like when you have a lot of congestion, maybe you have a lot of sinus pressure, like there's just something like kind of cloudy and foggy in your head. And so you feel like you're disconnected from your body. You feel rather detached. You don't feel like the two are connected. And so that can create issues of imbalance. And like for me, I feel very wobbly because it doesn't feel like my head and body are really working together all that well. My appetite goes down significantly. I'm very spacey and foggy. I'm not really involved in things. I'm not really contributing in things. I can go through the motions. And so this is a huge part is like we're going through the motions. We're just kind of like on autopilot. And that is a problem because it means that you actually aren't really sure where you are in your body. And so again, all of these things becoming more clear, more clear, more clear that I don't know just how disembodied I am, and now I'm starting to really pay attention to how I am encountering my life. So, I started to really establish some very significant awareness because I was very intentional about it. Okay, which are the conversations that I tend to all of a sudden start drifting away? Who are the people that all of a sudden I feel like I am disconnecting from myself? What are the triggering emotions and just different situations in my life that make me feel without even realizing it, that all of a sudden something just kind of snaps off in a way and, I'm kind of hovering or floating and I'm not actually here. I'm not here. So, to get myself back into my body began another healing journey of understanding and really giving love, because that is Mary Magdalene, really giving love. Not just being like, "Okay, so this happened. This is what I need to do to support my healing. This is the healing process. This is the practice, and then this will be the transformation and the result, and hopefully, like, the outcome that supports me moving forward." In my head, intellectual. I had to really feel my body, and I had to feel where the discomfort was in my body, and I had to ask myself some very difficult questions just so I could access the true visceral honesty and authenticity of what my body was saying. Then I started listening to the different versions of myself that are some of them are very young. I have encountered some that are older though, from maybe like 10 years ago when I went through a very difficult situation and maybe I was triggered by a particular emotion, and then I asked myself, "Why is this so hard for you? What is it about this particular feeling makes you feel like you have to check out? What are you protecting yourself from feeling? What is the feeling that you are the most afraid of experiencing in your body?" Like, these are the questions that I asked myself. And I will tell you that, like, especially the muscles in my abdomen, like, are all around my solar plexus, right below my diaphragm. I experienced so many muscle spasms. It's interesting where it shows up in my body. There are some things that I feel right here, a sharp pain. There are some things that I noticed that were radiating. Like if I thought about it, it would radiate in through my shoulders, up my neck, and to the sides and back of my head, and feel like it was like in a pressure, like a vice, like just pressing down really, really hard. And then, like I said, like feeling some of that, like very expansiveness or that really strong constriction in my sacral region when I wanted to do something and maybe my body didn't want to do something. Like the idea of going somewhere and doing something, yes, this is awesome. This is great. I can't wait. Let's go. And then all of a sudden, my body having a very strong reaction that was like a no, no, I can't. No, I don't want to do this anymore. So it's a lot of duality and dichotomy within us that we get to recalibrate back into the body. Because also in my studies of Mary Magdalene and just the history of, the Abrahamic faiths and how women were treated, how women are still treated, we have absolutely been taught to not stay in our bodies, to not appreciate our bodies, to not love our sexuality, to not feel confident in our beauty, to not show off too much, not be too bold, not be too assertive, not have that agency and self-authority and self-governance of ourselves, to toe the line, to hold ourselves back, to be careful what we wish for, oh God, just all of the things. And that very much is in the collective unconscious because even though so many things have shifted in terms of women's rights and women in business, women holding wealth, women, evolving in some really powerful ways. There is still the echo of the collective unconscious that exists throughout our bloodlines and in the world, in on this planet, amongst humans, that still is not really on board with this massive evolutionary development of women restoring their place and calibrating us back into the balance, because things have been quite lopsided for some time now. And so this isn't about disproving men. This isn't about putting men down. This isn't about casting men out or castrating them or ostracizing them or, imprisoning them. But this is really about the feminine principle. This is about the body. This is about love that lives inside of the body. We have concealed ourselves in the darkness of our body. We have created darkness within ourselves. That is the realm of darkness, separating from within, putting parts of yourself in the shadows because they have been unloved, they have been rejected, they have been judged and criticized. And this is where I'm going to invite you back into the light of love within your own body and within your own heart. This is where we get to actually embrace the body from head to toe, from within and without. And just as much as I have absolutely believed that, the church fathers and anything that is honestly just like this wounded, toxic, injured masculinity and patriarchal force and pressure and rule making and structure. They have wanted to keep us from our higher consciousness, which is why we have so many distractions about repenting and atonement and being made good again in the eyes of God and being saved and salvation and all of these things, being born of original sin, Eve picking an apple off the tree from the serpent. And oh my gosh, all of these things that have made women appear as we are lesser than. And that we cannot separate ourselves from our sexuality. Why does anybody need to separate themselves from their sexuality? Just as they want to keep our consciousness at bay. We want to keep you sick. We want to keep you struggling. We want to keep you in survival. Like, they don't want us to all be thriving. They don't want us to know the power that we came here to embody, because that would threaten the systems that they have set up, these institutions that keep us all in check and in fear. And so they've portrayed femininity in such a way that, of course, you wouldn't want to be in your body. You may have been taken advantage of. You may have been abused. You may have been wounded. You may have gone through some very significant things that already made it feel like I can't be in my body. And then with the collective unconscious kind of doubling down on the shamefulness of women and not being able to separate ourselves from our sexuality as a bad thing, something we should feel guilty and shameful of, women have turned against their bodies. And it's just never been more clear to me. That is the darkness. That is the darkness that separates us from our source, from God. And they knew what they were doing. They knew that if they could plant these seeds of shame and doubt and fear and guilt and embarrassment within our consciousness, within our bodies, that what would grow from those seeds is what we look at today in this world, which is a really sad situation, because there is no gender that is better than another. Both genders need each other for survival. Both genders need each other for the balance of all things, because both serve significant purposes. And that can be man and man, woman and woman, man and woman. But the whole point is that the masculine and the feminine need to be in harmony with one another. Okay. So I actually don't care what somebody physically has between their legs or on their chest or who they identify as. I care more about what they embody as a human being walking this earth. We are still living in this very, very, very visceral separation of who we are from within ourselves. And we were never taught to be in our bodies because when you were going, if you went to church as a child, you were taught that you had to, like, this intermediary individual, a priest or a pastor, somebody was the representative of God in your life, that this person spoke for God and you needed this person to translate God. Then you started school in which you would be graded on literally everything that you do. When I was little, and this started in kindergarten, I wasn't interested in following the rules. And not because I was a rule breaker, like I was starting trouble, I was a class clown, I was distracting. But what I did was I was walking around the classroom to check on all of the other students and see how they were coming along in their progress for their work. Like, do you need help? Do you have questions? What are you drawing? What are you doing? What color are you doing that with? And just conversing with everybody because I've got ants in my pants and I don't like staying in the same place too long. That's just who I am. But I was disciplined for that, and I was told that, like, I wasn't following directions, I wasn't maturing socially fast enough because I was too interested in what everybody else was doing. But the other side of that coin was also that I had my work completed, all of my stuff was done correctly, and the truth is that when I was done with everything, if I finished it a lot faster, I was very bored and wanted to interact with other people. And I got in trouble for that. So you look at your life and how your behaviors were formulated through the exterior environment. Do this, don't do that. Say this, don't say that. Be polite, have good manners. I do believe in politeness and manners and stuff, but I think that sometimes people can take that too far. And so when we look at like the grading system within school and how we're taught things in school, it's all intellectual. There is nothing that brings you back into your body. There isn't. And so actually the only thing that I can really think of that brought me back into my body while I was in school was a gym class. Cause that was like competitive and you had to prove something, that you could do this thing that we were doing in gym. And so I failed gym sophomore year because I just didn't want to do it. But the most embodied class that I think I ever took in school was an elective ceramics. I loved my ceramics class. I took that senior year because I didn't really have any other credits that I needed, and it seemed like a really fun thing to do. So I decided to take ceramics, and that it was like I was in my zone. I had my clay, like she would give us like some directives of like, okay, this is what we're making this week or whatever, but I could create. I was in my body. I was in my zone. It was like everything outside of me completely disappeared in a really good way, you know? And so, but art and poetry and, being able to channel these different like creations and feelings and all of these things through you that are very genuine and heart centered, that is connected to your embodiment. But taking a math test, learning geometry, learning algebra, learning literature, learning grammar, learning science and history and all of these things that did none of these things put me in my body. In fact, they probably took me out of my body even more because I didn't like many of them at all. Definitely. I didn't like being in a classroom where things were I was just taught that. This is what you need to do. You need to read this. You need to answer these questions. We're going to test you on this. To me, it felt like a lot of fluff. It just felt like a lot of bullshit. I see the same thing through politics. I see the same thing in religion. I see the same thing through the education system, which what do all three of these have in common? They are institutions of patriarchal influence, all of them, whether it be your church, whether it be your school, whether it be your politics. Okay. There is nothing floaty and comforting and artistic and creative and loving and supportive and nurturing about school, church, or politics. And I bring church into it only because they actually don't teach you anything in church. The churches that I went to anyway. If you feel like you're learning so much from your church, then I'm very happy for you. And if you're very happy with your church, I'm very happy for you. I have not experienced a church that I felt like I was so moved from within myself. And so I've designated my body as my church. And that is the last piece of this video, that my body is my church. And when I illuminate my church from within, there is an undeniable tether to my source, to my God, to my goddess. There is an undeniable tether to my heart, to my spirit, to my expansiveness and the potential that I hold within this world. But I have to get back in my body to understand that. And what I learned is that I was also, without realizing it, because this isn't more of an egoic thing, it's not a voluntary thing, it's not even a conscious thing that you're doing, but I was unconsciously protecting what was hiding in the shadows of the darkness of what was keeping me separated. And I think what happens there is unconsciously there is shame, guilt, embarrassment, and just feeling like this is wrong, this is bad. There is self-vilifying and punishment and judgment and criticism. Everything that's lurking in the darkness within you, all that's within your shadow selves, is something that wants to stay hidden because you have learned that to bring it out into the light and for it to be exposed is a very negative and bad and wrong thing. So, from a very young age, you have been protecting this part of yourself from being exposed. You will hide these parts of yourself. You will conceal them. You will get triggered when somebody else is embodying it for themselves. Like if my trigger is somebody being lazy, if I walk into a room and one of my kids or both of my kids are just sitting around watching TV or whatever, and I have a really strong reaction to that, but it was when I was younger, because if I was seen sitting in the living room, I was often yelled at because it was like, "Why aren't you doing something?" I don't need to be doing something right now. My schoolwork is done. My room is clean. I don't have anything to do. And so it was like, well, I'll find something for you to do. And so, what the heck is the problem with being able to sit and relax and just watch TV for a little while, right? So, I remember when I was younger, this was a very triggering thing to me. Like, if people were sitting around doing nothing, I was like, they are lazy. But I realized when I was doing my own shadow work, and this was probably like, I would say this is probably around 10 years or so ago, I realized that I was getting triggered so much by other people's relaxation and just being, because I never had an opportunity to really do that until I moved out. I had been projected on and shamed and guilted for just being a kid that wanted to watch TV. I spent a lot of time outside when I was a child. Like, I was outside all the time. And even in the snow, if we had a snow day and we didn't have school, we were outside. We weren't sitting around watching TV. We were building forts out of snow and we were sledding and we were doing all sorts of things outside. So the fact that every time, like I was sitting in the living room watching TV was like seen as this bad thing that I shouldn't be doing, I internalized that as this is a bad thing and people should not do this. And so other people doing it triggered me. Like, how dare they be sitting around doing nothing? They should be doing something. Why aren't they being productive? You could clean something. You can wash something. You can prepare for something. Is there something you've been procrastinating on that you haven't done yet? Maybe today's the day you do it if you have free time. And this is such an incorrect way of living because we deserve rest. We deserve lazy days. We deserve an opportunity to replenish and recharge. But this is how the shadow works, is that you are witnessing a behavior, some way that a person is interacting with you or interacting in their environment, and you get really upset about that. And you kind of perceive them as doing something wrong, that they're incorrect. They shouldn't be doing this right now. And there's a judgment and an opinion and a criticism that goes along with it. But the truth is that within yourself, you carry a fragment that portrays that behavior. And you're trying to hide from it. You don't want to look at it. You don't want to examine it. You don't want to even understand it because initially it just like there's an emotional electric fence in your body that as soon as you start to encounter it, you're kind of like, you're shoved back. In order for us to understand where we have been holding ourselves in the shadows and in the darkness, we've got to allow ourselves to really understand what bothers us about other things in our lives, people, situations, circumstances, places, ideologies, whether it be politics or religion or whatever, like there are things that all of us have within us that are irritated by other people. And to really get back into the love of your body, to love how your body looks, to embrace it, to accept it, to nourish it, to care for it, to support it, to feel so deeply connected to it, we've really got to start shining the love into the shadows. And that is what I feel Mary Magdalene was doing on this earth. I feel like she was illuminating all of the darkness. She was illuminating all of the shadows, but not because of this ethereal, like, thing that you can transcend into. It's more about transcending within and doing it through the portal of the physical vessel because you came here to be a human being. You didn't come here so that you could keep leaving your body over and over and over again. You came here to have a human experience. And that human experience needs to be experienced. And it gets experienced through embodiment. And to experience embodiment, you've got to bring yourself back into your body and to start creating the wholeness as within and so without. And that is bringing the love into all of the little crevices, all of the little nooks and crannies, all of the little cracks and holes, all of the places that you have considered to be bad, wrong, inadequate, unworthy, non-deserving, unlovable. Every part of you, of who you are, regardless of where you come from, regardless of what you've done, regardless of what's happened in your life, understand that you are divine. You are a child of divine origin and original blessing, not original sin, because the body is the gateway to God. So, sexuality and connecting through sexuality in a very in a way where two people come together in deep knowing of the power of their love. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have fun, okay? It just means that there to be in physical union with somebody is sacred and it is godly. It is not sinful, it is not shameful, it is not bad. It does not mean that you are a slut, a whore, a prostitute. It's so interesting how a powerful woman is portrayed when she is misunderstood and when other people are triggered by her power. People will be triggered by your power. People will not understand. There will be people that potentially vilify you, who want to punish you, judge you, criticize you, who are cynical of your movements, of your embodiment, of your self actualization, and really representing everything that you love because you're living it. Representing, like we talk about how much we love, but do we live our love? No, we separate ourselves from it because we don't want to feel the hurt that love has caused us. This is where we heal. This is where we shine. This is where we allow the wounds of the past, the scar tissue of the past to be harnessed as power and a gift in the body towards our future. So for anybody who is here and you have made it this far, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for hearing my words and the experience that I have had throughout this journey that has honestly shaped me in so many different ways, has changed me, transformed and alchemized so much of my heart because there definitely was shadow in my heart of times that my heart was broken, that I was disappointed, I was neglected, abandoned, judged, injured in some way, and then feeling like I couldn't open my heart fully to the potential of love, that I couldn't feel all of the love that I have in my body for myself and for the world and for everything. And this is where we get to really do the work and really love ourselves and really expand on that outside of ourselves because we truly are limitless through a portal of love. And if you believe that God is love and you believe that the source of the universe is love and you believe that creation is love and all of these things, then guess what? You are love because you are all of those things. Thank you so much. Please contemplate this, journal about it. What is coming through for you? Ask yourself the hard questions and breathe and cry and allow yourself to go to the depths of who you are. Step to the edge of who you are because who you find there is you and you get to bring her home.